Okay guys, so here we have Darren Smith, the famous coach for the D squad, talking to us a little bit about coaching environments and his personal insights into his current squad. So Darren, thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So Darren, over the last number of years really, you've had a lot of success with your athletes, including world champions, world championship series medalists, winners, and obviously last year Olympic silver medalist in Lisa Norden. So incredible success. I'm going to ask you what you think that is down to, and what you think creates a world-class environment that you have created for your athletes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether I knew that I'd always be successful, but I was hoping to provide an environment for the athletes to develop consistently, and wherever wherever we finished up was fine by me. If we had really talented people who were in a good program, then they go a fair way. If there were slightly less talented people but in a good program, they still improve quite a lot. And I say even many years ago when I was the Scottish coach, I thought of it like this. We think of education, and around the world there might be Harvards or Oxfords, and they're programs that have worked hard to build a reputation of excellence. And if people come in and want to work hard within that environment, then they'll pop out the other end pretty good. Now, we can't control what talent level people come in, but we can certainly control what effort they put in and the type of environment we have within that, university program or our squad. So I try and develop the best program I can, and the skills that I have and the people that support that program are important. So we try and look for better ways of doing things. We have very little control in the early days of who walked in the program, but others see that success and want to be part of it. So, I've taken a bit of my development from looking around the world at very successful programs, and they seem to have quite common elements. Now, the nuts and bolts of the actual program itself is more about a push and a pull. The athlete, I'm like the CEO of the program. I have a variety of roles, and some of it's coaching, but most of it's program management and setting the scene, sometimes adjudicating on values, on errors, and so forth. Sometimes it's about having to cull people from the squad. A bit like a CEO has to have many hats. I guess the pull is from my desire to become world class, and I wanted to be good at something when I was young. I didn't really know what I was going to be good at, but I wanted to be seriously world class at something. It wasn't going to be as an athlete. I was decent, but not good enough. Sports scientist, so I was pretty good. But then coach was actually part of my passion, and I've often thought of myself as being very lucky to find this passion. And so work is not, I work incredibly long hours, but I, don't think of it as work for most years. There's been 1 or 2 years where I've actually had to work, but not many others. And the pull is the athletes get a sense of how driven the CEO is, and they, they're not expected to be working as hard as me, but they kind of get dragged along if they see that the leader is desperate to become good, has that passion to spend as many hours as is needed to do it. And then there's a little bit of the push, from a CEO perspective. Sometimes we'll have athletes that just they get lost along the journey a bit, so need to be maybe helped along that journey.
What do you think in certain other environments, other coaching environments, where do you think other environments fall short in doing all those things that you have just said? Do you see that quite often?
Yeah, well, I work with athletes from maybe 8 or 10 different countries around the world, and probably in total over my years, the last 6 or 8 years, I've coached athletes who have been pretty much one of the best athletes in programs from about 12 or 14 different countries. So I'm in a privileged position to be able to view programs much more than anyone from Britain who works in the British program, because they just don't get an insight into others. So I've seen lots. Very few get it right, in my opinion, and they probably value the wrong things. And it's a system problem. It goes right from how the funding is delivered, who delivers the funding, what are the outcomes, the KPIs, for instance. Disparity between the KPIs of the funding organisation to then the head coaches, to the managers of the teams, to then finally get down to the athletes. A pretty smart man recently said to me that he uses a different KPI, and it's one that I use a lot too. It's called not the key performance indicator, it's the key performance inhibitor. Most programs have more inhibitors than they probably see. Things that get in the way. And because I run my own shop, and I've probably had enough success that most programs don't give me a lot of problems. Most programs are happy if I take on somebody because the track record's good. They don't give me a lot of stress, and indeed if they are a pretty dysfunctional group, I'll actually ask my athletes to often blame me for not wanting to do stuff that the program wants done. So for instance, the program might want 100 forms filled out and plenty of time invested by the athletes or me that isn't productive, doesn't make them one scrap better. Then I'll often say to the athletes, just say that the coach won't let you, so that they don't get in trouble. Yeah. I'm happy to take and that's a bit like a CEO, a good CEO or a good manager is they take the heat and let the good people, their employees or the athletes in our squad, get on with the real job of making themselves better. So we don't waste time doing stuff that's not necessarily going to make a difference, and we spend a fair bit of time trying to get rid of those inhibitors.
You talk obviously a lot about being the CEO, and you mentioned there about having sometimes to make the tough decisions to cull athletes from your squad. What do you look for in new athletes coming? Because it's not just about athletes taking from the squad, it's about what they can give back to your squad as well. Is that a big philosophy of yours?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is we want to move people forward. I've been with a few people who had winning in their minds all the time, and I went away from spending some time with these type of people thinking, well, maybe I'm not about winning, maybe I'm not good enough at an Olympic level. Because the way I think of it is that I want to encourage these people to get better each year, to see how far we can possibly get them. And then if I think that's my job, I give them all of the skill sets for them to perform. I can't control what they do on the day necessarily, but my job description is about educating people to be holistically capable, just like any coaches. So the coaches out there, if you've got major weaknesses, if you're not consistent, if the message you deliver is not, common sense and consistent, if you're up and down mentally, you've got holes. And so we work on those sort of attributes with my athletes. The Olympics is a pretty special environment. It happens one day. So if you haven't got the balls to perform, if you haven't got the clarity of mind to probably get rid of all the BS that the Olympic federations and all the other people that don't matter bring to the party of an Olympics, then you won't perform very well. So we try and have clarity of our purpose, and that is to get the best out of people. There's not really a timeline on it. So if I pick somebody to be in the squad, it means I literally invest in them as much as they invest in us, because it's a big deal. I don't take on athletes that federations would normally call normal for them and they'd be happy to have. I always get the desperate ones who don't really fit in or are a little bit unique. Some of them see us as the place of last resorts. I've never been offered a federation athlete to look after who's talented. The federations keep them for themselves. So I look after the people who are a little bit odd, weird, and that helps because, they at least find a place that will welcome them, that tries to work pretty hard to improve them. But we do require something back from them, and that's a sense of belonging to our group. Not to dismiss the belonging to the federation or their country, but they are expected to contribute. Sometimes this is not normal for athletes. There's been case studies where, one pretty high-profile American who just happened to go top 4 at the Olympics came into our program and said to me, "Well, get that bitch off my feet in swimming." And I said, "Well, I think that's probably the wrong attitude to have, because that bitch will probably help you with your running, Groffy." And that bitch did help her with the running, and so there was this mutually beneficial sort of interaction, and both people got exceptional, and they ended up 2nd and 4th at the Olympics. But they helped each other get there. There wasn't one person pushing another person down in order to get to the top. It was, a combined effort from the whole lot of us.
Is that one of your challenges in your day-to-day environment, is obviously dealing with world-class athletes who are from different countries who are competing against each other? How do you manage that environment?
Yeah, so I'm pretty consistent, and the last couple of years I've had athletes, like literally 2 on the podium at the World Series, in the overall World Series, and 3 or 4 or 5. A few years ago I sought extra guidance from pretty high-profile coaches of elite females, because I thought, oh boy, I'm in trouble here. Not only have I got 1 or 2 good females, I had 5 or 6 really exceptional people who I thought could really go onto the top 10 or 15 of the world, and how's that going to work? So I think the lesson I had was that actually my approach was pretty good. I was pretty frank. I wasn't tiptoeing around important issues. So everyone knows they get the truth from me. There's no fluff. I don't give any of that sort of stuff. I tell them the truth. They appreciate that. If they're not used to having the truth because they might have dealt with people with lots of fluff, then they'll find that a little bit confronting at first. But it is what it is. They know that I won't lie to them. Now I'll nurture and help, and I'll reward effort. I won't reward really outcome. I don't have a hierarchical system. Everyone's treated the same, and we value effort and things that everyone has control over. The outcome is something we can't always control, so I don't reward on the basis of a hierarchical. You're the highest ranked athletes, so therefore you'll get the best bedroom at camp, biggest and best, the most attention, and that sort of stuff. It just doesn't happen. I treat everyone the same. You're rewarded because you try hard and work hard every day, trying to get the absolute most out of yourself. And that's how we choose to operate.
And for me, communication is key in any coaching environment. And obviously your environment is quite intense. Do you find that there is a natural kind of cycle of time that an athlete will be in your group for? And if so, if that period is coming to an end, how does that communicate between coach and athlete? Because that's quite difficult to manage.
Yeah, so given that our program isn't a home program, we spend a number of months per year away, and I think there's a normal timeline. So most of my athletes have, go to about 3 to 5 years. Sometimes they'll move on a little bit earlier. through exceptional circumstances, but mostly they'll invest somewhere between 3 and 5. Most of us will know whether we're getting the most out of them. So there's been, a couple of people that I've moved on fairly recently, and it hasn't been the fact that you're cold. I'll just ask them if we feel as though we've still got the right environment, and I want them to ask themselves and to evaluate our program and see whether we have the skills to take them further. Each and every year, nobody's locked in. Nobody. Am I good enough next year to take you further? Does it fit holistically with you and your life? Some of my athletes have husbands at home and they leave them in the first year of marriage and that sort of stuff. Others don't, but we just don't maybe seem as though we're squeezing the most out of them. It might be our issue or it might be their issue, and normally I'll hold them a little bit accountable if we're not making forward progress. I don't shirk those talks where we talk about whether, they're getting the most out of themselves. If we can't come to a solution, then we'll look to help them find another coach or another program that might just be able to do it better. So I've got no ego associated with who I work with. I'm happy to hand them on to other programs and see, hopefully the relationship is strong afterwards, after they leave the squad, and we certainly don't have any animosity to people who leave one way or the other.
Yeah, because that is a skill in itself, is to know when to pass athletes on to...
If you've got no ego,
yeah.
If it's not about you, then it's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah.
Because you just simply look at whether you've got the goods to take them further, and they only have one career, and most of them can't waste a number of years on the wrong program. So if you just don't, you think of them as people you spend a lot of time with and you care about, and just you would your kids to make sure they go to the right school and all those things in their development. You definitely want the best for your athletes. And hand on heart, are you holding them back? And hand on heart, are there better people or better programs or better systems that can help them move forward? That's a simple thing to think about.
Obviously, you're on the road on 9 months of the year with your athletes on camp, at races. How do you keep yourself healthy? Because if you're not healthy, then you're not productive to your athletes. That is a key element.
So every Olympic cycle I'll have a sabbatical. So for instance, after the 2008 Olympics, I went, on a big holiday. I had 2 months off after the last Olympics. So I think of it in 4-year cycles. And it's true, this time round we didn't have much of a break this year because we're moving house, got other responsibilities. So I'm literally running on fumes now. I haven't finished for the year, ironically. I'll have a break soon, in the next week. That'll be a hard rest phase. I'm resting hard like the Kenyans. But then I'm started again. And again, if I have the capacity to work for long periods of time without blowing, and I don't have regular timeouts, I'll adjudicate. Sometimes I'll have the athletes or the massage therapist adjudicate on when they think I need a break. Often it might be just a mountain bike ride one afternoon by myself in the hills or something, just to get some time out. But I'll literally go until I blow, and then I'll have a break. So it's kind of not periodised, my breaks. It's a bit random, but I know when I'm not effective. And sometimes in coaching you don't get a chance to have a break when you want it. I remember years ago as a Scottish coach in January thinking, oh, geez, I'm tired and I've only got 8 months to go until Commonwealth Games. And I couldn't forecast a phase where I had to rest. Sometimes you just suck it up and get on. And, it's not for the faint-hearted and it's not for the soft, especially if you want to work in our arena. And other coaches that work at this level have to compete against people like me.
Yeah. Well, I think, Darren, that's. I think we'll wrap it up there. But great insight into your coaching environment with your athletes. I'll maybe leave the last word for you if you've got any tips for any aspiring coaches who are running their own training groups, or whether it's club level, whether it's working with elite international athletes. What would your final parting words be?
I guess the my example was I had a suspicion I could be good at something, so I took the opportunity. It wasn't the easiest opportunity to see whether I was any good. I went overseas and coached, and I developed my skills. I create lots of networks, so there are always good people around to help, and try and foster this environment where you're always consistent, you're always rewarding effort rather than outcome. Try not to get caught up, because the only thing you can control in your environment as a coach is your performance, how hard you try. You can't control how talented you are right now, but you can work at getting better. And it's the same thing with the athletes. So don't expect more than just them trying their absolute best every day, and you'll be surprised how that's a bit infectious within the group, and how destructive most environments are where you reward anything but effort and endeavour. So that's probably my advice.
Okay, thanks, Darren, and wish you and your athletes all the best for next season. Thank you.
Good job.